I'm indeed humbled by that introduction that you have just made. That notwithstanding, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to each one of you. I am indeed privileged to be part of the prestigious Global Security Summit Vision 2020. It is indeed a pleasure to address such an august gathering and share my thoughts on contesting the Indo-Pacific for global domination, which to my mind is a very contemporary topic. In the last 3 decades, the world has witnessed many military conflicts like the Gulf Wars, the global war on terror, conflicts in West Asia, just to name a few. We have also witnessed the Asian and global financial crisis and the mushrooming of many multilateral organizations. In the midst of all this, China's rise has been one of the most defining moments of the 21st century. Today, as we discuss this very contemporary issue, the world appears to be on the brink of a new era. New centers of power, new alliances, and new rivalries based on geopolitics, geoeconomics, environment, and technology are emerging, putting pressure on the Bretton Woods institutions governing global trade and security. Competition and cooperation between the established and emerging powers will further cause a strain on these 20th century global institutions. The COVID-19 pandemic has turned from a global health crisis to a global economic crisis having geopolitical ramifications. The world is moving away from globalization to deglobalization, regionalism, and perhaps towards globalization. We are and we will increasingly witness the rise of nationalism, economic patriotism, shift towards buying local brands, need to take back control of supply chains, and shifting of strategic industries within the country's boundaries, even at the cost of increased production costs. Thus, the world is clearly entering into a new geopolitical phase, likely to be based on loose multipolarity with focus on nationalism, protectionism, and strategic realignments. The Indo-Pacific as a concept has been in being for quite some time. It is the geographical area covering the east coast of Africa from the Indian Ocean and the West Pacific region. The economic center of gravity has been shifting and will continue to shift eastwards in this century. And with the major global supply chains passing through the region, the Indo-Pacific in general and the Indian Ocean region in particular will remain vital for transit and world trade. United States recognizes the Indo-Pacific as a consequential region for America's future. To achieve this, US has initiated numerous programs with a focus on the Indo-Pacific. Japan is the leading infrastructure investor in Southeast Asia and has committed about US $200 billion for infrastructure development in Asia, Africa, and South Pacific through Partnership for Quality Infrastructure, which is referred to as PQI. France considers itself a resident power with geostrategic advantages in Western Indian Ocean region. Amongst the extra-regional powers, it has the second largest military footprint in the region. UK is a non-resident power in the region and has expressed a desire to partner like-minded nations. Australia has shown renewed focus on the neighborhood and wants to reinforce its middle power position, and Indonesia is seeking to leverage its location through the GMF strategy. Even Germany has articulated its Indo-Pacific strategy in recent months. In addition, most of the countries in the region are seeking to reap the economic dividend through improved maritime connectivity and harnessing blue economy, for which infrastructure development is a prerequisite. Resident powers as well as extra-regional powers have shown a renewed interest in investing in infrastructure development in these countries in order to maintain and increase the geopolitical influence. There are numerous regional powers and sub-regional organizations in the region. However, a comprehensive security architecture is apparently lacking. The other major non-traditional concerns in the region include piracy, maritime terrorism, human trafficking, unreported and unregulated fishing, and proliferation of weapons. Governance and security are under constant threat of being undermined by non-state actors, as also naval competition among states. To protect peace, prosperity, and sovereignty, it is important for us to keep our sea lines of communication secure at all times, with a strong hold on the security dimension of this region. In recent years, China's economy and military rise, coupled with competition to increase influence in the region, has attracted a great deal of interest. At present, there are over 120 warships of extra-regional forces deployed in the Indian Ocean region in support of various missions. Till now, the region by and large has remained peaceful, albeit under contestation. As a nation, we have aspirations. We aspire to be a $5 trillion economy by 2024. Be a member of the United Nations Security Council. Also, be a regional power and also have a vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. All this requires building a strong India, not just in terms of military power, but also in terms of economy, cyber, food, community, environment, personal, health and energy. We need to achieve all this despite living in a tough neighborhood and an increasingly contested region. By virtue of a geophysical configuration, strategic and economic imperatives, we look at the seas and oceans surrounding us with ever increasing interest. A peninsular projection into the Indian Ocean region, astride vital sea lanes stretching from the Suez Canal and the Persian Gulf to the Malacca Straits, is the key enabler of our ability to engage freely in maritime trade and commerce. Of late, along with the geostrategic competition in the Indo-Pacific, we are also witnessing a race for strategic places and bases in the Indian Ocean region, which is only going to gain momentum in times to come. Based on the challenges we face as a rising regional power, we require structured long-term planning for capability building and capability development of our defense forces. In our quest to build a stronger India, we need a peaceful and stable security environment. We need to maintain a strategic autonomy, cooperative relations with extra-regional powers, underscored by strong regional linkages that would provide us greater degree of strategic leverage. We need to build upon other bilateral, trilateral and multilateral mechanisms like JAI, that is Japan, Australia and India, like India, ASEAN and other such already existing mechanisms to have the right balance in our strategic autonomy. We need to build capabilities to execute operations in response to requests from friendly foreign countries. HADR, that is Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief, search and rescue, protection of vital stocks, non-combat evacuation operations, and last but not the least, robust defense of our island territories. At the juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I also feel that technology will play an important role in any nation's quest for supremacy, be it in the military or any other sphere of activity. Therefore, investment in research and development will determine the future course of action for any enterprise. quest to acquire proprietary rights on technology must not deny benefits of development to the global community at large. It must, in fact, create linkages between the haves and the have-nots. Humanity must not get guided by profiteering alone, but must consider equal opportunity and growth for all. In the military field, technology must become a means of deterrence and not a source of destruction. Therefore, technology must be applied to benefit mankind and not to destroy existing systems. Our approach to security, therefore, needs to shift from a unilateral mode to one of multilateral mode, which mandates increasing training engagements with partner nations so as to fructify joint response in the future. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I would say today we are facing increasing security challenges, and to my mind, the best guarantor of peace and stability is to have dissuasive deterrence. For a nation like India, the security of land borders remains our primary concern. Therefore, there is a need to develop integrated structures to ensure modernization programs to be undertaken by our armed forces based on careful assessment of enforcing nature of threats and challenges, correct assessment of enforcing nature of threats and challenges. In addition, we are also partnering with like-minded nations to ensure peace and stability in our region. Ladies and gentlemen, this is India's century. Many across the world are bullish about India. It has the talent, demographic dividend, and vibrancy of culture. And this is an issue. This is something that I quote from Puneet Ranjan, who is the CEO of Deloitte Global. He says it's an opportunity for India to get supply chains back into the country. Same thought has come up from Doug McMillon, who's the CEO of Walmart. So therefore, what clearly emerges, India is an aspiring nation and providing opportunity to the global community to invest in India, and we welcome any investment with open arms. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, with these words and thoughts, I wish the Global Security Summit Vision 2020 a grand success. I am sure that the conference will witness some very productive discussions and suggest the way forward towards collectively ensuring national security in an era of strategic uncertainty. Thank you and Jai Hind.
नमस्कार, मैं हूं मानक गुप्ता। अगर आपको हमारा ये वीडियो पसंद आया हो तो इसे लाइक और शेयर जरूर करें, और हां, हमें सब्सक्राइब और फॉलो करना ना भूलें ताकि आप देश और दुनिया की कोई खबर मिस ना करें। तो जुड़े रहिए हमारे साथ और देखते रहिए न्यूज़ 24।